Ed Wood, a man who gave new meaning to the term schlock.
Oh my God, doesn't make A movies, he doesn't make B movies, he makes Z movies.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to another episode of Good Times with Bad Movies. I'm Tim Morrison, joined as always by my co-host. I'm glad his mom went with Plan A, Paul Ireland. Paul, how you doing?
Oh God, I'm really good, Tim. I'm really good. That was really funny. How are you today?
Oh, I'm swell. So I'm really excited for this movie. We picked a really old movie today. This movie came out in 1957, and at the time, it was called Grave Robbers from Outer Space. And then it came out again in 1959, retitled Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Really?
Yeah. Distributed by Valiant Press, directed by, written, and produced by Ed Wood.
So, I'm going into this blind, Tim. Never ever seen this movie before in my life up until this point. I didn't even really know this was an actual movie up until about 12 years ago. I always thought it was just some fake movie in Seinfeld. You know, in the episode where they go to the Chinese restaurant and they're going to eat dinner and cut right. And they're going to see Plan 9 from Outer Space. I thought it was a fake movie. I thought this was like Rochelle or Sack Lunch or Channel. I didn't realize this was a real thing. So having seen this now, I do have a lot of questions here. So again, I didn't know this movie was released twice. So there's got to be a story there.
This movie didn't get a nationwide release. The theater land was done in a way where states had exclusive rights. Certain states have exclusive rights to films. So like I mentioned, the name of the movie is Grave Robbers from Outer Space when it came out in 1957. 2 years later when it came out, it was changed to Plan 9 from Outer Space. And some people suspect that Ed Wood changed the name so that he could show the movie in different states without the distribution company knowing that their movie was being shown in different states outside of the contract that they agreed to.
Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, sort of just a way for him to go around that. Okay, yeah, circumvent that little rule. Oh, well, fair enough, man. You gotta get your movie out there. You gotta get this masterpiece in front of as many eyeballs as possible.
In the 50s, there was like this rise of like sci-fi / horror kind of stuff mixed together. Like everything up until that point through like the 30s and 40s was like all the like the dark age of horror movies like Frankenstein and King Kong and that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of people want to capitalize on this. And like I think The Day the Earth Stood Still is like one of the very first aliens visiting planet Earth kind of movies, and that came out in 1951. And this director who wrote this movie and produced it, Ed Wood, just loved movies, and he often had ideas that were so big that most people wouldn't dare try to film it, because going back into like the 50s, making a sci-fi epic like something like Star Wars is kind of like unheard of. And he didn't get a lot of money either. I'm sure you might have noticed that this movie was done on a shoestring budget.
I mean, it looks like a grade 12 high school play is going on. That's probably the level of production on this, I would say. Like some of this looks like it's just cardboard. It's crazy how bad some of these sets are. Real quick then, is there like a quick background on this guy, Ed Wood, that you can throw at us? Because I don't even know who this guy really is before this movie. I haven't watched the biopic yet. I don't really know anything about this. So I'm going in blind here. So if you can give me a little Ed Wood crash course in like a minute, you know.
Ed Wood was born in 1924 and spent most of his childhood in LA loving movies. Like he was around Hollywood a lot. And in the 40s, he joined the military. And then after his service was over, he kind of committed himself to just writing scripts and trying to get movies made in any kind of way that he could. And he had so many scripts and really, really big ideas, really out there ideas. So Ed Wood's first movie that he managed to get made was called Glenn or Glenda.
Okay. I know exactly the movie you were talking about. Wow. Okay. That's the guy. All right. That's what we're dealing with right now. If anyone's not sure what that is, maybe you just go, you can Google the plot of that one.
It came out a few years before Plan 9, and it just happened to be around the time that the very first gender reassignment surgery, successful surgery, happened. And he wanted to make a movie and capitalize on that. And Ed Wood enjoyed specifically Angora sweaters, female Angora sweaters. So I'm not going to go into this much deeper than that, but in a lot of ways, Ed Wood sort of identified as Glenn or Glenda, and that's why he got that movie made. It was a little bit of a passion project, and it was made as almost like a surreal documentary.
That's interesting because it's like, wow, I've heard of that movie before. I have. Okay, so yeah.
Years later, Ed Wood came up with this movie called Plan 9 from Outer Space. He really wanted to cash in on the sci-fi horror trend. So he made this epic, and he had big ideas with this. And as the production of the movie went on and money ran out, he kind of scrapped a lot of the ideas, but still used what he had to make the movie.
Really? The grave robbers thing I guess it kind of makes sense. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't really. Maybe there's something there that you can explain more as we go through this, I think. I don't know. But we should probably hit everybody up with a little synopsis, though, just so they kind of know what this wacky movie is all about.
Evil aliens attack Earth and set their terrible Plan 9 into action. As the aliens resurrect the dead of the Earth, the lives of the living are in danger.
I got a lot of questions about this movie. I mean, now that you say this, this makes more sense now that they just had to, again, Frankenstein another movie here together just to make it happen. I don't know about you, but I think maybe we should just get into this.
Beat me up, Scotty. Yeah. This movie starts with darkness and some epic 50s music. The light slowly fades in, and we see a man named Criswell. And there's a title that says Criswell Predicts. And it is this man in a suit with almost bleached white hair, and he has some things to say. So, yeah. So, Paul, do you know who Criswell is?
I don't know. No idea. He kind of looks like one of the Lollipop kids grown up.
He kind of looks like, the movie Village of the Damned? It's like what one of those kids would grow up to be.
Yeah, or like Colonel Sanders' cousin.
Criswell is a radio personality, as well as papers and magazines and maybe some TV. I'm not sure. Anyways, he was a self-proclaimed psychic. He said the world would end in 1999. Anyways, Ed Wood was friends with Criswell and liked his voice and liked his delivery so much that he just put him into movies. So Criswell's role here, as he's sitting at a desk, the fourth wall is totally broken, and he is just sitting here talking to us, the viewer. Paul and I are going to try and recreate this scene for you, the intro to this movie, and here is exactly what Criswell says. Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened on that fateful day. We are giving you all the evidence, based only on the secret testimonies of the miserable souls who survived this terrifying ordeal. The incidents, the places. My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friend, can your heart stomach the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space?
My friend. The amount of times he was my friends, we're in the future, and we're all concerned about things that affect us in the future. And his weird enunciation that this guy has, the weird enunciation this guy has, and he like his pauses and inflections, they're so funny. They're all over the place, and it's this weird theatrical kind of thing. And you know what's hilarious too is like when I was watching this guy, you can like see his eyes like scanning across periodically. He's like reading this off a card, these lines.
Oh, you could tell he's clearly reading this off of cue cards, yeah.
Yeah, like no one, there's a couple points in this movie that I've noticed stuff like that. Like, it's like nobody learned lines in this movie. They were just like, we're going to hold up a cue card for you, or you can just make up stuff, apparently. That's what this whole movie is.
I think that's why it was kind of easy for me to do that and try and sound like him, because I was also just reading that off of the screen as I was doing it and taking it in.
Yeah, you're a method actor. You're committed to the craft. I appreciate that, Tim. It's a high quality you're going to get here at Good Times and Bad Movies.
So right after Criswell says Grave Robbers from Outer Space, the title for the movie, Plan 9 from Outer Space, appears on the screen. And we are at a funeral, and we see a couple people standing around, an old man, and Criswell is narrating the funeral here. By the way, this guy kind of just jumps in and out of the movie narrating parts for us, and the majority of it is rambling, just like you heard at the very beginning here. So this funeral is for a lady who died recently, and standing there is her grieving husband. He's an old man. Paul, do you know who that is?
I believe that is Bela Lugosi, is it not?
Yes. Bela Lugosi is famous for portraying Count Dracula. He was the first one to bring a lot of personality and using like the Romanian accent to Count Dracula and kind of make him seem like romantic and that kind of thing. So yeah, Bela Lugosi was a big deal in the 30s. And I think as the 40s went on, his star kind of sank a little bit and movies just weren't the same. And he kind of became washed up and he was addicted to opiates or painkillers of some sort. So just by chance, Ed Wood happened to be in the same place as Bela Lugosi. And Ed Wood was just infatuated with Lugosi because he was such a fan of like all those Frankenstein and Dracula movies from the 30s. He really wanted to just cast Bela Lugosi in anything he possibly could and also kind of get him back on his feet a little bit, give him some form. Bela Lugosi saw Ed Wood as just an incredibly ambitious actor. And at first, I don't think he realized how limited Ed Wood was financially. He passed away before this movie was made. However, leading up to this, Ed Wood would write very short, not even finished scripts. He would write scenes for Bela Lugosi and film these scenes without actually having a full movie in mind to place them in. So he had tons of stock footage of Bela Lugosi. And this is one of them. He used a lot of them in this movie. So Bela Lugosi is just standing there sad and mourning because his wife has passed away. And Ed Wood uses the narrator Criswell to link these scenes together. Otherwise, if you watch this without Criswell narrating it, you would have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this scene's hilarious. Well, it's not really hilarious. Part of it is, I mean, like the beginning here, they're just like people at a grave and they're all crying and stuff. And then you look over and there's like, there's like these two fat guys in like farmer's clothing, just ready with bandanas on. They're like, all right, we're going to just bury this guy once you guys are gone. They're like, it looks like they're like 5 feet away, just waiting for them to walk away. There's no dignity to this at all. They're just like, yeah, all right, we're going to dig this grave.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah. And it's weird too because the grave's already dug, right? Like it's not like they're putting dirt on anything. Like this grave already has dirt on it. So I don't understand what's really going on with this. Do you know what I mean? Like I guess what I'm looking at is just a bunch of crosses and there's a pile of dirt. And now these guys are going to come by and start digging a hole. So did they put a body under dirt and now they're going to dig a hole and then move the body from this loose pile of dirt and put her in this hole? Like, what the hell is going on here?
I don't think they thought that far ahead. I think they were just like, here's a shovel. You guys are grave diggers. I read actually that these two worked with the preacher who was facilitating the funeral. And so they were part of his church. And Ed Wood asked them if they would play grave diggers in the movie.
All right, fair enough. There you go. I mean, you need some help to get this movie off, so. Yeah, so the next thing we do is we're cutting to a plane, and this plane is flying in the air. And I guess so this plane looks like it's straight out of the cockpit out of that movie Airplane with Leslie Nielsen. This is like a joke cockpit. There's like a tarp. It's like a tarp in the back. And these guys are standing there with like these two semicircle things on sticks that I guess are supposed to be. This is supposed to be like the instrumentation for this plane that you fly it with. Like, I don't understand what the hell this is. And I don't know if you noticed this either too, but like this guy's got like a script on his leg. He's sitting there with this like a script on his lap.
He's reading the script in his lap. You can see him looking down at the script every now and then as he's delivering his lines.
Yeah, he's like literally reading off the script here. Like he's like 2 feet away from it, reading off of this thing into this microphone. This is crazy.
This cockpit consists of 2 joysticks that look more fake than an Atari. And on the wall, there is nothing except for a clipboard. And yeah, this looks like something straight out of like an 8th grade play. And by the way, that's not a tarp, that's a shower curtain.
Is that really?
Yeah.
The pilots, you can't disturb them. You can't walk up there. I guess it's the 50s, so.
I'm willing to bet that they use a regular door in the 50s.
In the 50s, you could like smoke on a plane and everything, right? Like no one cared about it. So maybe there was a shower curtain there. I don't know what it's like. They're radioing to this flight tower, and all of a sudden this like giant whoosh of light comes by. And I guess it's a flying saucer that they see in the sky here coming by them. And you know what's funny? You know what's funny too is on the colorized version here, when I was watching it again, you can when the light goes by, you can clearly see there's like a shadow of like a boom mic in the top of this thing too.
In a lot of the scenes, you can even see the strings.
Really?
So these flying saucers, in case you couldn't tell, they're actually toys. They're toy flying saucers painted silver. There is a background of painted, it's just a blue background with painted white clouds, and this toy dangling, and you can see it swinging back and forth on the line.
I can't believe that anyone showed up to this movie, looked at the quality of the sets, and was like, "Yeah, this is a legit Hollywood movie."
You can even see like the shadow of the spaceship on the back of the wall, like that it's like dangling in front of. Yeah, and it's so funny, like as it goes into focus, like when the spaceship quote unquote flies away, it's like you can just see it dangling back and forth at the screen. Like someone's clearly just there with like a fishing pole hanging this spacecraft.
Yeah, it looks really bad. I mean, it's crazy how bad this looks. But you know, watching this movie, there's a lot more like pop culture references that I'm starting to get the winks and nods at, where I'm like, okay, I kind of get what's going on here. I get what they're making fun of. And then like, yeah, just I've seen, you know, that little cheap imitation on so many different little movies and TV shows. There's something about that though that is kind of cool. That's hilarious. So this next whole thing is confusing. Maybe you can explain this to me. All right. So as a spaceship goes by and it leaves the pilots dumbfounded in the air there, I guess it lands somewhere near these grave diggers, who are, I don't know, God knows what they're digging a hole for. And then all of a sudden it's okay. So it's daytime. While I'm looking at the grave diggers, it's daytime. It immediately cuts to a scene now where it's pitch black. This is supposed to be happening like continuously, I think, right? And there is like this lady who kind of looks like Morticia or Elvira or something like that. And she comes out, and then I guess we hear this weird shriek on the screen. And that's it.
This girl is Vampira. Have you ever heard of Vampira?
No, I don't think so.
So Vampira is also a television and radio personality, and even had her own TV show, I think, for a little while. So when she showed up to play for her part, she thought the dialogue was so bad that she suggested that she do her scenes in silent.
Okay, right on.
That's how she got out of having to read Ed Wood's dialogue. So that's why, like, when she's walking towards people, she's like walking like a mime or like a zombie.
Bride of Frankenstein or something.
Yeah, almost like a silent film performance.
Wow, I mean, like she did like a Nick Cage Willy's Wonderland before he did, eh? She's like, no, I'm just not. I'm just gonna be in this visually, but I don't want to verbally consent to this movie. And wait. So I'm confused now. I mean, because going ahead, we are gonna see the effects of what just happened there, but I didn't realize that weird shriek was supposed to indicate that she killed those grave robbers. I thought that was supposed to be her like mind shrieking. It was like a psychic or something. I don't know what that is.
No, that's the grave robbers dying. And by the way, before we forget, this movie switches from day to night incoherently.
Yes. Why? So why is it nighttime?
I don't know. And Wood filmed a lot of the scenes at night and a lot of the scenes in the daytime and had no regard for it when he was piecing this together. Because this movie would have you believe, and you really only notice this if you're paying attention to it, this movie would have you believe that it takes place over the course of, like, I don't know, a couple weeks to a month. But you just lose focus of it and you kind of think, is this all happening in one day?
Yeah. What am I watching? This is like some weird like grave world, and then you're in it's normal, and this is so weird. And even when I watched it in black and white, it was still like glaringly obvious. I mean, obviously he's black and then it's white. It's black and it's white. So what the hell? Okay, so wait. We watched Room, right? That was like the king of bad movies. We watched Night Killer. We're like, that's his dad. So now, this is their grandfather.
It's like their ancestor.
You could only make a movie this bad by just not caring and being like, I'm just going to put this together and damn the consequences. It looks like whatever I want it to look like. Like, I cannot believe this guy just put this like this. And wow, this is all so confusing.
So right after that scream, Criswell starts talking again, narrating. And he's going on about the old man whom we saw at the funeral and how sad he is that his wife has passed on. And we see Bela Lugosi stepping out from his front door and walking out into his front yard, and he looks at some flowers and becomes sad about the flowers because those are the flowers that his wife planted. So he throws it on the ground. Criswell says, confused by his great loss,
the old man left that home, never to return again.
Okay.
What just happened there is the old man, as he was confused, he walked off the camera and we just hear these noises. And the old man was hit by a car and now he's dead.
So that makes a little more sense now. Like, I'm putting two and two together here the second time around, being like, oh, okay, like, yeah. Because I didn't understand that either. I'm like, so he's dead now? What the hell? What just happened? Because again, you don't see anything. It's just like this cackle, like the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz, and then you just hear a siren. And I'm supposed to know that Bela Lugosi is now dead. So, after this whole confusing scene happens here, and Bela Lugosi is unfortunately mowed down by a car, it seems like, we now go to a graveyard that, again, looks like, if this was a grade 12 play, I would be pretty impressed with the set. The fact that it's a movie, it's not that great. This is literally just cardboard. This is what this looks like. I don't even think they really painted anything here. But some people come out of a little, I guess it's supposed to be a mausoleum here. And this guy, Criswell, again, he remarks that this old man, I guess his wife is the one who is Vampira. Is that what I'm getting here? Is that supposed to be this old man, Bela Lugosi? Is his wife Vampira? Is that what I'm getting from this thing?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
That's okay. I mean, that seems like a bit of like a sugar daddy kind of weird situation there going on there. Because that lady looks like she's in her 40s and he's got to be like 70.
No, this was the 50s. Jerry Lee Lewis married a 14-year-old.
That's true.
Elvis was making songs called Kissing Cousins. It was a different time back then.
Yeah, you're right. People were definitely putting up a lot of weirder stuff, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, this man and this woman come out of the mausoleum and they walk over. They're leaving the grave here, and all of a sudden they see, I guess it's supposed to be two dead people.
Those are the two gravediggers.
I kind of gathered that. I mean, they look like two mannequins loosely dressed like they're supposed to be the gravediggers. It's not even like they're dismembered or there's blood on them or anything. It's just two limp, fluffy like pillows with hats and scarves on them, just laying on some straw. So I guess the police are called out to investigate here. And so this one, I guess he's like a head detective. I don't know what he is, but he kind of looks like Kingpin from Spider-Man.
Yeah, his name is Tor Johnson. He is a famous Swedish wrestler from the 50s.
Oh, okay. Okay, right on.
Detective Clay here decides that he's going to search the graveyard and investigate. So he goes off by himself. We hear some sirens, and it's the coroner and the morgue department. They've come to gather the gravediggers. And then we go to a scene with the pilot that we saw earlier, one of the pilots that we saw earlier in the plane, and he is at home on the back porch with his wife. Yeah, so Jeff and Paula are on the back porch, and he's discussing with Paula the crazy spacecraft that he saw in the sky earlier while he was flying, and how he's worried they might just finally do something to humanity. And he feels bound that he can't tell anyone about it.
I like this. I like this part here. This is hilarious. So his wife is asking about this this flying saucer. She goes, "What did it look like?" And he goes, "It looked like a huge cigar." It's like, okay, wait, a flying saucer in the name, a saucer. It's like a saucer. It's like a little plate. It's circular. It doesn't look like a cigar. And through this movie, you will see this is the classic spaceship. It's just there is nothing that looks like a cigar about this movie. I don't who came up with that line.
I don't know. I want to say that the script was written before they had the props.
You know, Tim, it was a traumatic moment and it happened really quickly. So, you know, we can't discount his story here, okay? You know, as he's kind of explaining this to his wife, all of a sudden there's a great whoosh of light again that flies by and this big, huge burst of like air or something that seems like it just knocks them over, knocks everything over. And again, we see the spaceship and it's flying over the graveyard. I guess is what's happening here. And so this part, it goes past the graveyard here. These, I guess the paramedics are bringing these poor guys out on their stretchers. And it just whooshes by them now. And again, they hurl this lifeless dummy off of the side of this gurney again. This is like a Jackass skit, is what this looks like. Like, they didn't even use, like, the real guys in this. Like, to even just been like, okay, man, can you just lay here and we'll put some ketchup on you and we'll flip you off this gurney?
I want to play for you what these flying saucers sound like. Because to me, it just sounds like someone turning a vacuum cleaner on and off.
That kind of sounds like a shop vac. Yeah, you're right.
And it just goes on and off like that because when you hear the noise, we're looking at this dangling toy in the sky. And then when we're looking at everyone else, when we see everyone else looking up at it, it's just silence. Like there's no blending of noises for the atmosphere at all.
Yeah, it's just anytime you see the spaceship, then you hear the go by it. And then every other time it's just like nothing going on here. And, okay, so you know, actually looking at this model ship now and hearing the noises and stuff. Did you ever remember there was an old TV show, and I'm probably sure it was 50s or the 60s, watching this now. It was called Thunderbirds, and it was these marionettes that would fly these little, the rockets and stuff look like these little things. That's what this is. It's like a little puppet show we're watching.
While that's going on, in a different part of the graveyard, we see the Swedish wrestler, Detective Clay. And he has just walked by the tomb of the old man in this funeral that we saw a little bit ago. And the old man has risen from his tomb. Do you notice anything about this old man, Paul?
Well, I mean, you never see this guy's face in this thing. This is like Wilson from Home Improvement. What they did with this guy. It's just a vampire cape and you just see a couple eyes hanging out over the top of it.
Yeah, he's kind of like doing the, what people call nowadays the vampire sneeze. And so he's holding his arm like that. So yeah, like you said, you never see his face. Do you know why they did this?
I'm going to guess this is probably sometime around Bela Lugosi's unfortunate demise. Is that safe to say?
Yes, he had already passed away by this point. And to link the stock footage together into the movie, they just used this guy who really looks nothing like Bela Lugosi and just, gave him the Wilson treatment and he covered his face up. So you only ever see his eyes peeking over, and he walks like towards people holding this cape up over his face.
Yeah, this guy's like 20 years younger. You know, honestly, watching the colored version of this, really, you notice that a lot more than I would in the black and white version. But you're right. He just kind of walks up behind this guy. Okay, again, this big guy who looks like Kingpin from Spider-Man. He kind of also looks like Curly from the Three Stooges. So I'm somewhere between the two of them, but. He's now caught between the vampire, who you never see, the sneezing vampire, and Elvira here. And he just starts trying to shoot them in like the legs and stuff. and they're just kind of standing there looking at him. And that's it. He doesn't think to move at all. He just kind of shoots at their legs a couple times. And then he just stands there. And you just see the lady come at him. And again, we got a weird like off-camera scream again. And I got to imagine some of the off-kill like some of the off-camera kills is probably just due to production constraints, but I wonder if some of this is also just because they had to comply with like the Hays Code that was being enforced then loosely in Hollywood at this point. So the Hays Code was like, it was like a morality sort of code. So I think it was the late 30s they started enforcing it, and then up to about like 68 I think is when they stopped doing it. But basically the good guys had to win. You couldn't show sex scenes, you couldn't show like a lot of violence, people being killed on screen. There were certain things you had to conform to, I guess, sort of say, right? Like they had a very strict standard on movies and what they should be showing and portraying at that point in time, right? You know, so I think that could be why some of these kills. I mean, at least maybe I would have just said that. I would have been like, Hays Code, man, what are you gonna do? But really, maybe they had like $40 to make this movie. I guess, I don't know. I guess the police, they hear this weird scream off in the distance, and they're like, oh man, Curly's in trouble. We should go check him out. And the cops come over and they find out that unfortunately he is dead. So there's a little bit of dialogue here that is just exquisite writing, shall we say. So Tim and I, once again, we're going to pull you into this sci-fi 1950s world here, and we're just going to do another dramatic reading for you here. Tim is going to play Lieutenant Harper, and I'm going to play two characters. I'm going to play Patrolman Larry and Kelton. So here we go. We're going to take you into the world. Yeah, he's messed up as bad as those two back there, see? Suppose that was a saucer or whatever, it had something to do with this, right?
Your guess is as good as mine, Larry. But one thing's for sure. Inspector Clay is dead. Murdered. And somebody's responsible.
You're in charge now, Lieutenant, see?
Yeah, yes I am. Kelton.
Yes, sir?
Get back up to the car and get on the radio. Tell the coroner he's got to make another trip out here.
Well, how about the lab boys?
Well, who do you think we left back at the car? Boy Scouts? Come on, Larry.
End scene.
I like that line.
Inspector Clay is dead. Murdered.
Somebody's responsible. That's some fine detective work right there.
That, just simple proofreading. You could iron out a couple of these creases. But I think that's also what people love about that, right? That's got to be a big line in this movie.
It's really not hard to tell that these actors have no police training or even really looked into what it's like to be a cop. Because, Paul, do you see what this detective is doing with his gun?
He is totally like pointing it at his own face and like scratching his shoulder with it.
Yeah, he's like itching his chin with it. It's like he has no idea he's holding a loaded gun. And he's just like pointing it around like he's using like a pointing stick while he's talking.
And it's kind of hard to see, but it looks like his finger is actually on the trigger too, which is like firearms 101. And he's pointing it at this other guy here.
He's like, here, you go over here. I'm pointing at you with the gun. You go over here.
Yeah, that is a big no-no, man. You never point that gun around. Like, he's waving it around. Like, all right, come on, boys. Let's get out of here. See?
So right after that scene, like it fades out and we are immediately in the exact same spot, only it's the funeral for that inspector who just died.
Still at nighttime.
Yeah, it's still at nighttime. So it's almost as like I think the movie probably wants us to believe that like some time has passed, but it doesn't look like that at all. It looks like the cops came out here to solve the crime of two murders. One cop died, and they're like, "Oh, darn, okay, we got to stop the investigation and have this funeral really quick for this fallen officer."
Yeah, don't investigate his body at all. Don't do an autopsy, none of that stuff. Let's just immediately roll him into the ground before he gets cold. That's amazing. That is like, what is going on in this movie? I don't know. And it's like, it's weird too, because then that vampire lady comes out and she's just standing there, just smiling and watching them. And it doesn't seem like she attacks anybody. That's just the scene. And then all of a sudden we cut to spaceships just flying around Hollywood, I guess, or something like that. We're supposed to believe that's what's going on here.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of spaceships dangling in the air around Hollywood, the Hollywood sign. And also it's spliced in with a lot of military stock footage. This military footage is spliced in basically to show us that the military has been attacking these spaceships. And the reason why they're attacking them is because they don't know why they're here. Oh. And they keep showing up. At least that's their reason. And they're talking about how they're covering it up to the public. They're just making lies.
So this is all confusing here. maybe you can explain this to me again now, Tim. I guess it looks like this spaceship now, they are all going to a mothership. I guess that's what we're supposed to believe here.
It's a painting of a mothership with a small spaceship dangling around it.
Okay, yeah. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like if you made Saturn metallic or something. I guess that's what they're going for, something like that. It looks like, I guess it's supposed to be a bigger flying saucer is what this is. And so we see a bunch of ships going to this bigger flying saucer out in the sky. I guess it's orbiting Earth somewhere. And this was really confusing and very uncreative because I was actually looking forward to seeing what these aliens were going to look like. Because I was like, man, they gotta have done something weird with this, right? Because I mean, first of all, we've got like space vampires going on here, and so what are these aliens that looking like? But these are just people in like tracksuits. So that was disappointing.
The special effects artist that Ed Wood hired had a lot of makeup and prosthetics to make these humans have alien-like features. So they didn't look just like you just said, plain old humans in tracksuits. And he had a lot of them prepared, but they ran out of time in filming that Ed Wood was like, don't worry about it. We don't need it.
He ran out of time filming. I mean, like, to me, this seems like this is just cobbled together. So it's like, there's no timeline for this. This is just whatever.
A lot of people say when Ed Wood was making the movie, he was very almost like ADHD. Like when he was making one movie, his primary focus was on his next project. So he just wanted to get it done, get it to the theater, and get on to the next movie. And he was willing to cut many corners to get there.
Oh.
And one of the corners he cut was making the aliens look like aliens. And this spaceship that they're inside, it's a room with a desk and a red curtain behind them.
It's like a bunch of curtains behind them, like a game show. And it looks like this one weird electronic thing is sitting on like a dresser. This is just bits of furniture that he cobbled together and put a couple of like some just basic electrical measuring instruments on the table there and was like, there you go. That's a spaceship. That's science. That's science fiction. That's good enough. And you know, it's funny too. Like, so I guess these guys are supposed to be aliens. And like I said, they got like, these are like silk pajamas on or something. And the one guy in this movie, the head alien, okay, have you ever seen that? I can't remember what episode of The Simpsons it is, but there's one of the episodes where they go into like a French restaurant or something, and the guy who's like the maitre d', he talks like, "Yes, how are you?" And he's like, "They're like, what happened to you?" And he's like, "I had a stroke." That guy looks exactly like this guy. Okay. This guy is just like this giant weird face, and he's got like a 5 head and like very pronounced features on his face, like very big eyes. And but this guy looks like he's just like fed up with this movie. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this thing.
Okay, so like they walk into the room and they basically wrap their hands around their chests as like a sign, a signal or something that they have for each other. Because I don't know, that's the effort that he put into making them look like aliens. So yeah, they basically hug themselves and stand still, like almost in like salute formation. And he says to them, "What plan will you be using on the Earthlings now?" And they disclose that they're going to use Plan 9. And he says, "Ah, yes, an electrode beam shot into the pituitary glands of the undead and making them rise." And he seems to be dissatisfied with how well they've done and skeptical of their plans and kind of shuns them a little bit and tells them to do a better job. And he says that it's also unfortunate that they have to go this route because all they want is for the human race to acknowledge their existence, and the humans just aren't acknowledging them. They said they've been sending radio transmissions and they just haven't responded. And now they're shooting at them, so they have no choice but to go with Plan 9.
Yeah, they're going to raise the dead. So maybe you can explain this to me, because this seems confusing, right? Okay, so I think I got that right. The aliens are trying to make contact with Earth, at least the governments, just to like be like, we exist. They apparently don't want anything to do with them. They're trying to shoot at them. So their plan is to raise the dead and attack Earth, okay? For some reason that is yet to be revealed later on in the movie. However, like one of the things the guy with the 5 head says to them is like, "Has anybody seen you?" And they're like, no, we had to take care of one policeman, but other than that, we're good. So again, you want people to recognize you and know that you exist. However, somebody who just saw you, you want to tie up the loose ends and murder them so that they don't know what you're doing.
It doesn't make any sense. They're both sides are frustrated that the other one won't talk to the other one right.
I mean, like, have they tried talking to somebody who's not in the government? Just like landing in a farm field in Iowa or something? Like, hey, man, we're here. Have you got 5 minutes? You know what I mean? Like,
they got no choice but to go with Plan 9.
I guess so. What were the first 8 plans, you think? Like, you think they try to drop like little notes down from the sky, little paper airplanes or something like that? That was like Plan 3.
After they're sort of shunned by their ruler, the two quote-unquote aliens go into the hallway to have a quick little discussion. And here's another little line reading. Paul is going to be Tana, the female alien, and I will be Eros, the male alien.
I feared His Excellency wouldn't take our report this well.
Well, had he been dealing with our own people, his reaction would have been completely different. He understands the difficulties of the Earth race.
What do you think will be the next obstacle the Earth people will put in our way?
Well, as long as they can think, we'll have our problems. But those whom we're using cannot think. They are the dead, brought to a simulated life by our electrode guns. You know, it's an interesting thing when you consider the Earth people, who can think, are so frightened by those who cannot think, the dead. While our ship should be regenerated, we better get going.
End scene.
The lines are so funny.
I bet Edward thought that was so deep. The people of Earth who think are afraid of those who cannot think.
I saw a review and someone said the movie is charmingly peculiar. And I like that.
There's just so many things that are just so wrong with this movie that it does. I guess he kind of has a bit of a charm to it. Where you're like, well, I mean, it's like when a little kid comes home with like a macaroni drawing or something. You're like, well, I mean, you did the best you could.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you on that level.
So now we are on to a different scene with Jeff and Paula, and they are still on the back porch, and Jeff is getting ready to get back on this plane and leave Paula. And he's concerned about the aliens, the spaceships that they saw, and the graveyard is really close by too, so yeah. I want to show you what this conversation is like. So, Paul and I are going to do another reading. Paul, you're going to be Paula because that just fits. And I'm going to be Tanner, the pilot. I still think you ought to go into town and stay with your mother until I get back.
This is our home, and nothing's going to take me from it. Besides, most men try and keep their wives from going home to mama.
That's not the point.
That's all the point there's going to be. Now toddle off and fly your flying machine, darling. But if you see any more flying saucers, will you tell them to pick another house to buzz? Don't worry about me.
Oh, you're the only thing I do worry about. Oh, forget about the flying saucers. They're up there. But there's something in that cemetery, and that's too close for comfort.
The saucers are up there, and the cemetery's out there. But I'll be locked up in there. Now off to your wild blue yonders.
You promise you'll lock the doors immediately.
I promise. Besides, I'll be in bed before half an hour is gone, with your pillow beside me.
My pillow?
Well, I have to have something to keep me company while you're away. Sometimes in the night when it gets a little lonely, I reach over and I touch it. Then it doesn't seem so lonely anymore.
Crazy kid. I do love you, darling. See you Thursday.
End scene.
I like that. Now toddle off to your flying machine.
Yeah, you're going to go fly your flying machine. Ed Wood would have really done well to invest like $2 in a thesaurus. You got to figure out other words than just flying, and you can't say flying all the time. This is like Rick Ross level rapping, except it's a script. You can't rhyme Atlantic with Atlantic, okay? That's the point.
So the detective and the police officers are back to the graveyard because of the disturbance that Paula had. And I guess people have been seeing the old man in the graveyard, some weird stuff. So they're back and checking it out. And they are startled to find an empty grave. The detective who died earlier has climbed out of his grave. And by the way, this scene when he's climbing out of the grave is really funny because he rises up and then he kind of like starts to stumble a little bit. And there's just like a quick cut edit and he's just like standing straight up in the grave. And when the movie was actually being made, he couldn't get out. Ed Wood was like, "Come on, you guys, the actors who were dressed as officers, they're like, go over and help him out." And they're like, "Don't you need want us to stop recording?" And he's like, No, just go ahead and do it." So they went over and helped him out, and then quickly jumped out of the way, and they just like cut that little part out.
Wow. Okay. Right on. I love this. This guy, I mean, again, Curly here from the Three Stooges walking around. I guess he's a zombie. It looks like he's holding it. You know, when you're about to sneeze, that face you make before you sneeze and you hold it and you go, ah! That just before the chew, that's the face this guy makes for this entire movie as a zombie walks around here.
So the cops, they're standing there and they're searching the graveyard because they don't know whose grave it is. And after a while, they figure out that it's Inspector Clay's grave. I don't know how it is that they didn't know that. They just buried him like 20 minutes ago and came back to this graveyard for like the 5th time. But they act as if they had no idea whose grave it was.
Yeah, would there be like a tombstone at the head of this thing that would say whatever this guy's name is? Like, you think so, right? They're standing there. They're detectives. They're supposed to be detectives. Can you not put this together? Be like, well, get your notepad out, Johnny. Who is this guy? What does he look like? What was his grave site? Okay, well, it's about 6'3". Was this guy's about 6'3"? Okay, what the hell? What's wrong with these guys?
So a representative from the Pentagon who has specialized in tracking UFO activity has come to this small town to meet with Jeff and Paula and the detectives so they can sit down and figure out what is going on. They tell this representative everything that happens, and here's his response.
"This is the most fantastic story I've ever heard. And every word of it's true, too. That's the fantastic part of it."
Why? Like, all these lines are so silly. "That's the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. It's all true. That's the most fantastic part about it."
While the guy from the Pentagon is talking to everybody about how fantastic everything is, when the cops is over by the squad car, I guess it seems like the squad car is only, 15, 20 feet away, apparently. And they're like, "Hey, Jimmy, what's that noise down there?" And all of a sudden, here comes Bela Lugosi. I mean, I guess some guy who kind of looks like him with it's more like a Steinbrenner. Bela Lugosi is what you see. It's really just like the back of this guy. And he's coming towards the cop. And again, every person that sees these people in this movie, they have the same reaction. It's like they don't move. Everyone stands there while this person slowly lurches towards them. And then they just kind of shoot their legs a bit. And then when that doesn't work, then they stand there again and then they scream. And then they kind of slowly back away, some of them. You know what I mean? It seems like the smart ones kind of slowly back away.
And then every zombie/vampire just gives them a karate chop and they fall down.
Yeah. It's like a 2-handed judo chop to the shoulders is what he gives this guy, and he passes out. And, just like looking at the set too, I didn't know if you noticed this, but even the fence behind them, this little picket fence behind them, a lot of the boards are like warped and offset and stuff. It just looks like this weird nightmare set going on here. Like, what the hell is this?
So that's not actually a set. That's the house and property that was used for a good portion of this film. So the house that Bela Lugosi walks out of later on when he's smelling the tulips, that's this house. And this porch, when they're in the backyard talking, that's the backyard of the house.
Huh. Okay, wait. So Ed Wood thought enough to actually have some night scenes in this movie, but just not the ones that were supposed to be actually make sense to anything else. Like, he shot stuff at nighttime.
Yeah, well, and you have to keep in mind that a lot of these actors were friends with Ed Wood. So he utilized the different homes and places to film scenes, regardless of whether he actually had a script fully done. So
this whole part is hilarious, actually. So after Dracula karate chops this guy in the shoulders and he goes down, they just keep shooting at him. They're like, nothing's working. Oh my God, what do we do? Where they're panicking. And all of a sudden, I guess, this at the spaceship, the aliens were told that they're going to go down and they want to basically zap Bela Lugosi, and they're just going to turn him into nothing now. And it's supposed to scare the people and create a distraction while they raise more dead. That's kind of what I thought they were talking about. That's allegedly what's supposed to be going on in this. So Cut to, again, everybody freaking out, going, oh my God, what do we do? How do we stop him? Oh my God, no, Kevin, no. Stop the vampire, no. And then all of a sudden, this bolt of lightning comes out of nowhere, and this thing like just hits the ground. So there's a cape laying on the ground now, right? They pull the cape over.
It zaps the old man. Yeah.
Sorry. This like lightning comes out and zaps Bela Lugosi, and all of a sudden there's just like this cape laying on the ground now, covering up his body. And so they're like, I wonder what happened. And they grab this cape and they pull it over, and it's like, this is like, in science class, those model skeletons you would have. That's exactly what this thing is. It's like a model skeleton. There's just nothing on this thing. And it's like, I can't believe this. And everyone's like, oh my God, what is this? And they all freak out. I love this. This is amazing. What is going on? What is going on here?
This looks like the cheapest Halloween prop you could find. Like if you're going to decorate your house or something like that. Just like this plastic skeleton.
It's exactly what this looks like. And he's like, don't look, Paula. Oh my God. What is this? Yeah, like you don't want to see that gory mess.
They've all returned back to the graveyard to inspect a little further and see if they can figure out what's going on and look for some flying saucers maybe. And the zombie cop from earlier who died, the Swedish wrestler, he's kind of just running amok, and he grabs Paula. She just passes out of fear in his arms because it's the 50s and that's what women did back then, I guess. They just pass out they just completely faint when they get scared. And so he's carrying her around, presumably back to the spaceship. And the cop, Jeff, and the man from the Pentagon have stumbled upon the spaceship that Eros and Lady Tana here, the two human aliens, are just they're just sitting in this room. By the way, this room, the inside of this spacecraft looks like a regular room with just random little things like CB radios and little tubes. And you just hear beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, boop, noises like that.
You know what I thought was funny about this was like when the police, they find this spaceship, okay? So this whole time we've seen this spaceship. Again, at first they're like, it was a flying cigar out there, I tell you. And then when you see them, again, it's like a little saucer, and it's just like the classic alien ship, the saucer with the bubble. When the cops stumble upon the ship now that has landed here, this ship has like a full 90-degree corner on it, okay? Like it's like two flat walls. What? I thought this was a spaceship, a saucer. What the hell is this?
We are clearly looking at the corner of a shed painted blue. The only thing that remotely resembles it being a spaceship at all is that the entrance door slides closed. Like when you walk into a grocery store and the automatic door opens and closes. That's the only effort that's put into making you think that this is an alien spaceship.
And there's like a ladder on this thing. What is this ladder for? What the hell is this?
And you know what's funny? I think that the inside and the outside door is actually the same prop. They just added a wall because when they go inside, you can see there that the exact same ladder is in the same place as well as like directly beside that slidey door.
Wow. You're right. It's like they painted it a different color. That's like the two differences in this. And they used it for, they did a bunch of interior stuff and they use it to do exterior stuff here. Holy crap, that's right.
The cop explains to him, the inspectors say, you need to tell us what's going on here. What are you doing here? And he says, well, in 1 second, I want to turn something off. And he reaches over to a dial, and one of the officers just pulls a gun out and shoots his computer. And basically a fume of smoke just kind of rises and it dissipates. And the alien says, we're doing this because you're all idiots. All you Earthlings are stupid. You're idiots. And then he proceeds to go into this rant about how the aliens have come to Earth to stop us from destroying themselves because they witnessed the human race create the hydrogen bomb and the atom bomb. These aliens are worried that the humans are soon going to stumble on the fact that they can light the sun on fire and blow up the universe.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to be using like little photon particles or something, and they're just going to blow up light. That's the idea. And that this whole speech is so weird because he literally explains this 3 times in a row. Like his whole dialogue is he explained this to you 3 times. He gives you one one metaphor, okay? Then he reiterates it in like layman's terms twice, like in a row is what he says here. And like what he basically says is like that since the light comes down from Earth, since the light comes down from the sun to Earth, that once this bomb blows up a bunch of light on Earth, it's going to basically go back through space to the sun and blow up the sun. Then he literally, in the same breath, does not stop, continues to now reiterate that basically the same way I just said that. Like, it's crazy, this whole metaphor. He goes into gas cans and balls, and it's like a minute and a half. And then he says it twice in a row. And I wonder, was that 3 takes they just did? And they were like, we'll just use them all? Like they were going to edit one out or something?
I don't know. He may be. After he's finally done explaining it, Jeff says, you know, if we could get the solenoid bomb, we could be the most powerful race in the universe. And this is the alien's response.
You see? You're stupid minds. Stupid! That's all I'm taking from you. Get back here, you fool!
And then he smacks him in the face.
He just belts him, just backhands this guy, pimp slaps him. Stupid ideas.
I
love that. Yeah, he just knocks this guy out, and it kind of like starts a brawl inside of this little lab now. And we have, to me, this seems like one of the most abrupt endings to a movie you could ever have. That this all happens in a matter of like 5 minutes, the next like couple bits here.
So while they're brawling inside of this spaceship, the spaceship that it's grounded on Earth here, I guess just in the graveyard, a fire is started somehow when somebody is knocked into a computer. And basically everybody evacuates except for the aliens. They decide to stay in the spacecraft and fly home to the mothership. Outside of the spaceship, the detective, the guy from the Pentagon, a police officer, Paula and Jeff are all staying together, and they're pondering when they'll see them next. They say, I don't know. They say they don't know. There could be more. Who knows what's gonna happen when and if they come back. And I just really like this part. Right after they say that, the detective says this.
We gotta hand it to them, though. They're far ahead of us.
He acknowledges that they're so smart and intelligent and very far ahead of us. And then we see this shot of this spaceship dangling on a string, clearly just lit on fire. You can just hear these aliens inside screaming for dear life. And it's just hilarious to me that they would acknowledge like how intelligent they are and stuff. Meanwhile, they're like flying through the air on fire, screaming for their lives.
This is like honestly, Team America, World Police. Like Kim Jong-un fires away himself on a rocket and blows up. Like that is kind of the level of production you get here. I can't believe that. But there you go. And then again, we get to see our friend, the lollipop kid, Chriswell, the psychic, I guess, and he's gonna bring us out on this.
My friend, you have seen this incident based on sworn testimony. Can you prove it didn't happen? Perhaps on your way home, you will pass someone in the dark, and you will never know it, for they will be from outer space. Many scientists believe that another world is watching us this moment. We once laughed at the horseless carriage, the aeroplane, the telephone, the electric light, vitamins, radio, and even television. And now some of us laugh at outer space. God help us in the future. The end.
Okay.
There you go, Paul. That was Plan 9 from outer space.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. You're right. Okay. Wow. So I'm glad that is over. Thank God we're done with that movie.
It's a really strange movie. Even by today's standards, it's very odd.
I mean, honestly, there's something to be said. It is almost an art form making a movie that bad. To again, like just like in The Room, where it's like there, like reality stares you in the face at this movie in the script in black and white, and then when you look at it and things are happening on camera, like you look at this and you see that this is bad. yet you're committed to every inch of this. You're like, I'm just gonna make this thing. Like I have a certain amount of respect for these guys that they've actually done this, because if this was me, I would look at this, I would have just pulled the chute on this a long time ago, been like, this looks stupid, this looks horrible, these little spaceships and all this stuff, like, we can't do this. If you're not gonna do it right, don't do it at all. That's what I would do it, right? But honestly, like a complete nod, I mean, complete tip of the cap to these guys for actually just being like, no, this sucks, but I don't care. I don't care.
I'd like to read you a quote from the person who played Jeff, the pilot in the movie, just on his experience. I liked Ed Wood, but I could discern no genius there. His main concern was making his next film. It looked like they shot the thing in a kitchen. Worst film of all time. 30 years later, it's come back to haunt me.
Was he in other stuff? This guy, like, did anybody else go on to have a career in movies after this? Or is this like you were just cursed?
I don't know if I would say they were cursed, because the way the movie went, so this movie kind of just fell into obscurity after it was released. Not a lot of people seen this. It wasn't until a book was published called The Golden Turkey Awards, which is kind of one of the first books to acknowledge bad cinema. And it kind of exposed this movie was exposed to a lot of people who previously never heard of it. So for a long time, most people, so for example, here's a quote from Vampira. She says, I didn't have a decent costume for Plan 9. What I wore was old and worn out. It looked like it had a hole in the crotch of the dress, if you notice. But I thought, oh well, no one's ever going to see this movie anyways. The people that were involved with this movie really thought that nobody was ever going to see it. And if it wasn't for the interest of people liking bad film, I don't think it ever would have been discovered.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I could definitely see that, because I mean, this is in an era where like a movie comes out and it might play at a cinema for a little bit and then that's it. You don't really have a way to see it again, right? Maybe something comes on late night. Every once in a while there might be a movie. I think there's probably like, this is like, the days of like 3 channels. If a movie doesn't come on one of those 3 channels at any point in time, like, yeah, you're never going to see it again. So I could see how this could get sucked into obscurity. And so let me ask you too, because I mean, you picked this movie and you seemed like pretty insistent on watching this. So I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on this movie? Do you like this movie? Is it so bad it's good? Like, where is this for you? Was this like nails on a chalkboard?
No, I wouldn't say that this is nails on a chalkboard. Like I said, I agree with the sentiment that it is charmingly peculiar. And you can tell that Ed Wood had some kind of a big epic vision in mind, but he just didn't have like the discipline to actually follow through with his ideas, nor did he have the budget. And where most people would quit and be like, okay, I'm going to take on something where that's a little bit more attainable, Ed Wood didn't, and he just pushed through. And there's something charming about that. I like the idea. I like that he is obviously a huge fan of sci-fi and horror movies. Because, I mean, there are obvious poor attempts at replicating vampires and zombies and stuff from, the genre of the 30s and 40s and giving it a little bit of a sci-fi twist. So there's a lot of things that I just find really charming about it. Is this a quality movie to sit down and watch and enjoy? No, but it's excellent in the sense of like a midnight screening. I can't recommend that you do drugs or anything. If you want to have friends over and you want to see something silly and have a few drinks, this movie is a great companion. Also, there's a movie that came out that was directed and produced by Tim Burton, and the movie is called Ed Wood, a biopic about Ed Wood, and specifically how he came to make this movie Plan 9 from Outer Space. And in this movie, Ed Wood is played by Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's performance is awesome. I think it's one of the most underrated performances that Johnny Depp's ever had. He makes Ed Wood out to be a very endearing character. So if you see the movie Ed Wood, it would definitely spark your interest in at least watching a couple scenes or clips from Plan 9 from Outer Space. So I can't recommend that enough. The movie Ed Wood that came out in 1991 is an awesome movie.
Okay, that makes more sense. And I think I need to watch I think I need to watch that just so I can get the full context because, I mean, honestly, when you recommended this, we watched this, and the first time I watched it, I sat down, I had the hardest time just staying awake. I was like, and like I know that this is such a cult film, and when you Google, you know, like best bad movies to watch or like something like bad movies that are so bad they're good kind of thing, this is always usually the top of the list for a lot of people. For me, honestly, the first watching of this was so hard, and I was like, I thought it was so boring, so lame. I thought the dialogue was dumb. I understand I mean like tonight going over it we're having some laughs about it, and I could see the humor in it more. Just the first time watching it, some of the stuff just went past me, and I'm like, is this supposed to be stupid? Like it was more annoying for me the first time watching it, and watching it again sort of endeared it a little bit to me, you know? So I think maybe this is one of those things that I have to watch more and more, and you slowly pick up on the weird, subtle, bad things that happen in the back, because it was just like really jarring and frustrating and really confusing to watch. I think definitely given the context of the Ed Wood movie, I think that'll probably make this a lot more enjoyable, and I think the two would probably be a good pairing. I think maybe you'd almost want to watch the Ed Wood movie first, it sounds like, and then watch Plan 9. You know what I mean? Get the primer for the main course.
I purposely didn't recommend that you watch that movie prior to this because I want you going into this with a fresh set of eyes. Because I was really curious about what your reaction was going to be. But for anybody else listening to this, just go and watch the Ed Wood movie.
Yeah, don't do what I did. I mean, honestly, because even some of the dialogue was hard to hear, you know. So definitely would recommend the colorized version and something with subtitles, because I think it's a little bit clearer to understand, even though this movie makes absolutely no sense at all. But you know, you're right. There's something about that that's charming. It's the fact that you just disregard reality and you go, no, we're just gonna do this. It's like, oh, you know, I've got respect for that. I got a little bit of respect for that. So. That's amazing. And I mean, what a great way to close out this month here too. It's September, you know, so we've officially got this as of the airing of this episode. We will have been publishing podcasts for one whole year. So, I mean, like, give yourself a round of applause there, Tim. Like, I think that's fantastic, you know, like
one full year.
Yeah. And it's really fun that, you know, this month we sat down, we're like, you know, we're just going to be a little indulgent, and we're going to pick stuff that's just silly and goofy, even more silly and goofy than we would normally do, right? So I mean, this is great. It was definitely a fun movie to sit here and go over now that we've done this.
All right, Paul, let's toddle off and fly our flying machines home.
Sounds good, Tim.
Greetings, my friend. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future.